welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we have 10 games on Wednesday night, a marquee night in the NBA. In this one, we're taking a look at the rematch from Monday night. The Sixers back at home now, taking on back in Chicago now. They lost at home the other night, taking on Chicago in Chicago. We also got another game video up for you and our player props, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Went undefeated last night in those player props, so we will look to continue that hot streak for you guys tonight. Also want you to head to thelines.com. Got plenty of great written content up there right now, including March Madness. That's also up on the site in full swing. And we have that odds finder tool up there. You can make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from all the sports books that are giving us bets this NBA season. Nate, let's go ahead and get into this 10-game slate here and then talk about these Bulls and Sixers rematch.
Yeah, well, we went 3-1 in props last night. Of course, Russell Westbrook did not hit the peripheral stats. I mean, he got his points with Paul George going down with injury, but no peripherals for him. Anyway, we got Nuggets -7 at Washington, Knicks +2 at Miami. That is an intriguing matchup, not really one you want to bet on right now. The Warriors are -2.5 at Dallas. That spread has grown a little bit. We still don't know about Luka. He's questionable for a third straight game here. Kyrie as well questionable. Pacers are +9 at Toronto. The Spurs +18 at Milwaukee. Hawks +4 at Minnesota. Ant has a chance to play there. Totals all the way at 241. The Rockets are +12 at Memphis. Ja has a chance to play. He was eligible on Monday, but sat out that one. This game, we got Sixers -3.5 at Bulls. Totals around 221. We'll talk about it in a moment. Blazers +5 at Utah with Lauri Markkanen questionable. And then the other game we look at is a pick'em, Suns at Lakers. Totals up to 229 out there. And yeah, I mean, we're right back here in the home and away set, as the NBA likes to do these days. And it's really a revenge spot for the Sixers to come back and finish the job. They feel like they probably had the Bulls buried in a really ugly, low-scoring game that, Doc Rivers said is not the way they want to play. They are a pretty slow-paced team, but I think just generally they got really bogged down in the weeds against Chicago. I think they're going to look to push the pace tonight, and I think they might sit James Harden, who's questionable with an sore Achilles, which would mean a lot more Tyrese Maxey and a lot more pace, and therefore it's time to pivot and take the over at 221. I was on the under in this last one. It still went under in double overtime, much to Josh's chagrin there. But yeah, I mean, Maxey is fully capable of picking up the slack if James Harden's out. His last 4 without Harden, 28.5 points, 6 assists, 30.5 usage. He's a +33. The Sixers have won all 4 of those games. They've won 7 of their last 9 without the beard. And the reason they've lost 2 in a row against Chicago, Embiid missed the first one of those, but Maxey had a pretty good game there to get you over and to keep up with Zach LaVine, who went absolutely nuclear in that game to give the Bulls a win. But yeah, I mean, Embiid was unstoppable before he fouled out in that double OT game. 46 points. He is unstoppable in general these days. Some might credit Harden for serving up some of his points, but really, I mean, how hard is it to run a pick and roll and then give the guy the ball at the nail and be like, all right, go to work, big man. Like, it's not like another point guard can't do that. James Harden isn't necessarily creating all that stuff. I mean, but the Sixers, it's an exhausting schedule for them right now. They have the toughest schedule in the league, I believe, down the stretch here. They have another 4-game road trip they're just starting after that one home game against Chicago. But they've been road warriors. I mean, right? Yeah. 7-1, 6-2 against the spread since the break on the road. Yep. Much better offense on the road than they were at home, winning by 14 points per game in those. They tend to win when they're expected to. 15-5 straight up as road favorites. That's their best straight up record. They're 27-11 against teams with losing records. And 10-5 against the spread when they're on a rest disadvantage, even though it's equal rest here. You might want to say the overall stress of their schedule puts them at a little bit of a disadvantage, but they win games in that situation by 8.2 points per game. So, I mean, let's look at Chicago a little bit here. Obviously, they've been winning with defense lately. clawed their way into the play-in. They now have a little bit of breathing room with Washington sputtering. And they do tend to go under. That is true. It's why there's a little bit of a scare here. But I mean, what we talked about on Monday, it was just Zach LaVine hitting a bit of regression after going nuclear. Like I said, Vooch hitting regression because he has to go head to head with Embiid. DeRozan still, he came alive in overtime, but he's still not the DeRozan of last year. It's a discrepancy in clutch numbers. Like if we do get into another close game, I think the Sixers have more with Embiid still out on the floor. And I do think there's a lot to look at with the over here because I was talking about how the Sixers are scoring all these points, but in their 2 home games in this recent stretch, not so much. The pace is way down. The defense is better. Fewer free throws, way fewer threes, but it's all different on the road. And I think they get it. They ramp up the pace a little bit per what Doc wants to see.
Yeah. A lot to unpack in what you said, but I'll start with the clutch stuff because you ended there. And DeMar DeRozan is actually still one of the best clutch players in the league this year, believe it or not, because of the way the Bulls are not one of the better clutch teams in the league this year. If you look at the records in clutch time right now, DDR nice. I mean, DeMar is he's second most points per game in the clutch. He's got like the 4th highest field goal percentage of anybody actually putting up at least a couple of shot attempts in the clutch this season. But his team is 14-23 straight up in the games where they have to, that are within 5 points in under 5 minutes. So the Philly 24-15. Who gets the ball in clutch? Joel. Who gets free throws in the clutch? Joel. Who's been giving up the second most free throw attempts to their opponent? The Bulls, right? And that's another little point in the feather in the cap of the potential over tonight, which obviously has made me more gun shy when these two teams are playing. But it's a different scenario, like you said, especially if Harden doesn't play. Which, by the way, Harden scored 5 points in the game the other night, 14% from the field, making 2 of 14, and then 0 of 6 from deep. And talk about a game where they could have used him in the clutch, and he just buckled. And I really hope you don't have too many future bets on Philly in the playoffs at this point, because that's why you don't bet on them. Is Embiid going to stay healthy? Is Harden going to just disappear? And I think the answer to the latter is 100% yes. And the answer to the former is no. Embiid's here to stay. And if he stays healthy, which I think he's figured out something in the last 3 years, he'll be in the playoffs and they'll be looking good. And that's what this is, right? Like you said, you feel like the 76ers feel like they let one slip away. And really, like, they let one slip away because Embiid had to come out and James Harden just disappeared. That's what it is. But it wasn't, if Maxey is the focal point as the number one guard option, right? It's a different scenario. And I think down the stretch, they could have used him to have a bit more confidence and relied on him a bit more and just said, fine, James, you don't want the ball in your hands. Then Maxey's bringing it up and we're running pick and roll. Obviously, by the time Embiid's out, we're running pick and roll with like Paul Reed or maybe Tobias Harris. Not the same thing, but at least it's better than James Harden just bricking everything or just giving the ball away and standing in the corner, which is really disappointing. So either way, I like Philly in the clutch if Embiid's in the game, and I think that he should have a better shot at that in this one. The Bulls recently, they've been a little bit better on the road. I mean, they're 4-1 on the road since the break, and 4-4 at home, still playing pretty well and sneakily one of the better teams in the league over their last 6 games, winning 5 of their last 6 in that time frame. And they are scoring a bit more in transition as well. A few more points off of the fast break for them. They're still not really hitting threes, but I think they've got to regress upwards in this next one. LaVine had a horrible night shooting. You called that as well. He still almost got his points because he got to the free throw line 10 times, which I don't know if you want to rely on that. Philly has been limiting free throw attempts since the All-Star break to the tune of like 4th best in the league. But it's not like Chicago necessarily relies on that anyway, as they're still scoring like top 4 most amount of points from the mid-range, which is another good place to be able to try to score off of this Philly team in between any of the guards and Joel, basically, right? That's where you want to live a little bit more, because you're probably not getting all the way to the rim, but that's not where Chicago's trying to do. They're not trying to get all the way to the rim. They're definitely pulling up a bunch more, and I think they can get their 115 points per game that they've been scoring at home since the All-Star break in those 8 games. Like, that's a pretty good number. It's funny because it's an 120 offensive rating that it's taken to get 115 points for them, because they're playing at a 94 pace, which is second slowest at home in that time. Once again, like, makes you a little bit nervous. But if you look at the effective field goal percentage, right, which takes into consideration and true shooting, like where you're shooting on the floor, they're in the top 10 in those numbers because they're not going all the way to the rim. They're getting a bit more of a boost in that percentage from the fact that they're shooting from further away and making those shots, like I said, from the mid-range, and a little bit better from deep than they have been in the past. Like we were talking about the other night, and I was mentioning that they've hit 12 threes a night since they came back from the All-Star break, as opposed to the 8 that they were hitting in the month before they took that break for the All-Star weekend. So I think the three-point shooting will be there once again for Philly as well at home. They've been making 15 threes a game since the All-Star break, which has been good enough for top 6 in the league, and getting a bunch more offense there. I mean, they're 130 offensive rating on the road. If I said at home for Philly, I've been meaning on the road this entire time. Like you said, Road Warriors, 7-1, 130 offensive rating over their last 8 on the road. When they've been going 7-1, we know they're going to get a ton of free throws and winning by 14 points per game. And it's not like everybody's been a slouch on the road that they've been playing. They've got plenty of quality opponents in there that they're managing to come away with those victories. And I'm going to continue to believe in them tonight, and they're going to be pissed. And I don't think there's much that the Bulls are going to be able to do to stop them, which is another reason why you might consider that Philly team total as one of the better bets in this one as well.
Yeah, and a 97 pace in those road games, 5 of the 8 going over, versus like 92 at home in the last 3 now. And these are the 2 slowest paced teams in the league since the break, or in March. So that is really where you worry is this going to be another game where you're just like, holy shit, it's 90-90 in the fourth quarter. Like, I didn't know that's still possible in the NBA. But I don't think so this time. I definitely don't think so if Harden's out. I mean, this is how you manage sports betting. Like, you stay ahead of the curve. You look at like LaVine regressing. Now we're looking at LaVine popping again. I mean, he's getting plus money to hit 3 threes tonight after he hit 11 the previous one before he went 2 for 9 in this last matchup. So like, that's what we're gonna hit. We're looking at the Sixers to win this game now that the spread's cut in half, and we're probably looking at the over here. Although that probably is the scariest of the bets here. I think, Sixers money line is probably where you want to start here because of the clutch numbers that we talked about. Like Chicago, just not it. And I mean, 3-7 in one possession games this year. And while they've been better against top teams lately, I think Philly has enough motivation right now to just come back and get this one. And like you said, there's nothing you can do with Embiid.
Yeah, I mean, this is a true test to sports betting in the sense of like, trust the numbers more than trust your eyeballs and what they saw 2 nights ago, because it's just not the same thing. It's a situational scenario here, and this is a different situation than they were in on Monday night for a couple of the different reasons, like we talked about, the potential lapse or lack of Harden and Embiid remaining in the game no matter what, and just things going over a bit more for Philly on the road with the way that they're scoring a ton of points and playing pretty good D, to be honest, but just scoring so much and playing faster than they have. Expect that the pace tonight, once again, I would expect to be closer to 97, 98 than the like 95 that they've been playing at home. So,
and then this game, the Suns are a slight favorite, -1, and the total's been bet up from 227 to 229. DeAndre Ayton is out, hip ruled out. As we know, Kevin Durant has been out, and I feel like the Suns are in such a tentative situation, right? Tenuous situation.
Yeah, there you go.
Right now, that if they lose any of those 3 guys between Ayton, Paul, and Booker, that they're just screwed. And you saw, I mean, they were able to sustain losing KD in warmups and still beat the brakes off OKC at home by 31. And then without Ayton, they lose their 4th and 5th games. And the other ones are excusable in terms of the losses without KD, to Sacramento, at Golden State, against red hot Milwaukee. But then that one, really raises some red flags, especially when you get outscored 56-40 in the paint and you give up 36 free throws to OKC. They're now 2-4 their last 6 roadies without DeAndre Ayton. And they're 1-2 in their last 3 roadies before the KD trade. They've now lost 5 of their last 6 on the road in the conference without KD. That goes all the way back to their really weird shorthanded win over Golden State, which didn't really make any sense. And it's just a depth issue, right? When you trade these guys and when you didn't really have a great bench to begin with this year, now you're looking, since the trade, the Suns are 19th in bench scoring, 25th in field goal percentage, and 26th in free throws from their reserves versus a Lakers team that's suddenly deep, right? It's just like a different situation where you're like, one team was super thin, one team, and now they're bolstered in the Lakers, and they're second in points per game, fifth in field goal percentage, and the most free throws off the bench with Jared Vanderbilt and company, and your boy Austin Reeves scoring off the bench now in a much more comfortable role. So, I mean, I'm not looking at the 6-game win streak the Suns have over the Lakers in the regular season as taking any stock in that. I mean, these are different teams. The Lakers are very much a different team. LeBron didn't play in any of the last 3 of those games. And of course, he's not playing tonight, but AD missed 2 of the last 4. The last meeting in particular, no Bron, AD, or Westbrook. So it's just like a skeleton crew. And the one time AD did play, he had 37, 21, and 5 steals and 5 blocks with DeAndre Ayton out there. He can own the paint for sure. The Lakers also outshot the Suns 35-5 at the free throw line in that game, and only lost because they went 4 for 22 from 3. Because, again, it was a different team with Pat Beverly and Troy Brown starting, and we've talked about this all the time with the Lakers. Don't look at their entire season sample size. Look at what they've done basically since March started, which is, number 3 limiting paint points, number 1 limiting assists. Oh, that's the Suns, excuse me. The Lakers also number 2 defensive rating, number 1 opponents 3-point percentage, right. Number 3 limiting free throws. So both these teams playing elite defense, especially in close games in the clutch. I definitely would lean under. You could not tell me to take an over in a Lakers game at home right now, unless they're maybe playing like, I don't know, the Kings or the Hawks or something. They've gone under 9 of their last 10 at home. The games have averaged 221. The pace is decently fast, but it's just their defense is really good. And so, I mean, I think you go under here, especially with the total rising to 229. That seems too high. And once again, let's look at the clutch numbers. I mean, this is not the Suns of last year. And on the road this season in the clutch, they're 4-11. They have the 3rd worst defensive rating and 8th worst net rating versus the Lakers in March, 3rd best net rating in the clutch. So if it's a close game, I'm taking the Lakers.
Yeah, I think it's a good call, man. I definitely would be terrified of an over, like you said, in this one. It's interesting because DeAndre Ayton is their center, but like he's not necessarily the most important for things like, I don't know, down low stats, like points in the paint. He's scoring a lot. I mean, if it's a point in the paint that he's scoring, it's because it's a jump hook, right? We know that. It's not going to be a dunk. It's probably not even going to be a layup. He's not getting all the way there. His rebounding numbers are not necessarily crucial for the Suns on the on-off stuff. I don't bring this up to say he's not important to the team. I say he's important to the team because he scores. That's why he's important to the team. He gives them another option that he can make a jump shot from 15 feet in. He can't, and obviously when he's down low, he's just pushing it right over the defender because he's 7'1" and no one's going to block a baby hook for someone that tall, no matter how tall you are, until Victor Wembanyama gets here anyway. So with that in mind, for this game, what do the Lakers do on the other areas of the floor? How do they defend the mid range? How do they defend those offensive rebounds that the sort of scrappy guys on the Suns, like the Torrey Craigs on their team now, are going to be looking to get boards? Obviously, that was a much more dangerous proposition when you're playing the Suns when they have Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, and even Jay Crowder, who didn't play this season, but in years past, guys that were crashing the offensive board and getting those scrappy points, like they weren't coming from the center, but they're not going to be they're going to be pulling the ball from the mid-range. They have Chris Paul, they have Devin Booker. They're going to be trying to shoot anywhere from 9 to 16 feet away, essentially for the majority of the game. Let's say 10 to 16 feet away. And the Lakers, in a couple different articles that actually have been written on thelines.com, one that I put up about the Lakers in the last few weeks, have become a good team on defense after making trades for guys like Vanderbilt, even Beasley, and then Rui Hachimura, guys who can guard that portion of the floor because they're tall wing defenders that they didn't have, once again, since they lost Kyle Kuzma and KCP. So they're back to being able to guard those areas of the floor, and that's what matters against the Suns. So 229 actually feels a little bit high for a Lakers game at home. If you look at the advanced stats and some of the pace numbers, the Lakers not going as fast as they were. We're used to seeing them in a top 3-4 pace in the league over any kind of 3-week sample size on the season. And it's just not the case in the last couple. Obviously, LeBron not there. So it's not the same. And Russell Westbrook, not there. So it's not the same in terms of trying to get the ball off the defensive rebound and just push, which is also why those, the fast break points aren't necessarily there as much for them. But Phoenix they also haven't been as good on defense, which is why I would never feel comfortable betting on them right now. Chris Paul's not the same Chris Paul because what they need from him is points. And that's what he's not giving you this season. We know he can dime you up. We know he can control the game, make guys open, create guys to be open with his handles and the way that he runs the offense. But that's not enough if he's also not a threat to shoot. And if you look at how many shots he's been taking in the month of March, it's like 8 a game, and it's just not enough, right, for them. And that's because that he doesn't feel comfortable taking. He's not shooting a good percentage, even with the low attempts right now. So that's why it's like 229. I do lean under. That kind of is my first bet. But the Lakers at home with AD, without anybody to even give him any kind of resistance at all right now down low, like you got to expect a big game from him without a true center in there for Phoenix. And that's why the +1 is too much as well, in my opinion.
Well, Bismack Biyombo is a true center defensively, but he is a non-factor on offense. So, again, in support of the under there, yeah, he's going to have to play big minutes, do his best on AD. He might wind up in foul trouble, though, and then you get Jock Landale as a nice doormat for AD. And that's the biggest thing defensively. If you say where have the Suns struggled, they're dead last in opponents' free throw attempts in the month of March. And so, yeah, now you get a Lakers team that is top 3 in the percentage of points off free throws right now. Since losing LeBron, that's obviously where they're hanging their hat. Yep. And again, I mentioned the bench support that they're now getting. But it's all about Devin Booker for the Suns. Obviously, he's done his best to carry them since they lost KD in 4 conference games, averaging 38 points, but 3.5 assists and 3 turnovers, and good shooting splits, getting you the points, but he's only +9. It's kind of like a Damian Lillard situation where you're lighting it up, but the other team is loading up on you, forcing the ball out of your hands, forcing you into some turnovers, getting points off that, and nobody else is getting going. Because like you said, Chris Paul's old, and there's just not much supporting cast around him. Ayton was a huge reason in these last 4 against the Lakers. His offense, 20 points per game, 147 rating. CP3 also pretty good, but limited minutes. Some of these were blowouts. Like I said, nobody really played. And Booker's last 4 regular season at Crypto against the Lakers, only 21 a game. Again, 4 turnovers to 4.5 assists. So I don't necessarily see him lighting it up the way he has been. But even if he does, I just don't think there's enough around him to get the Suns this win against a really desperate Lakers team. Like we probably should have led with the fact that they're half a game behind Minnie and Utah right now to get a play-in spot, and it's absolute desperation time. Whereas the Suns, they might lose the 4 seed and be 4-5 against the Clippers, but they're pretty secure in their position versus the Lakers.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I don't want to say the Suns are not trying their hardest to maintain here. I don't think they're necessarily they think they have a shot at the Pacific or, a top 3 seed necessarily. But they got to keep that 4 seed as well. And I expect them to try. But at the same time, like if you look at, like we're saying, where the Lakers are good, obviously great on defense and great on defense down low, limiting centers, limiting also shooting guards, which is something to think about for Devin Booker over the course of the game is if he's not able to get his quite as much because they're focusing on that the way they have in their last 15 games, basically since the trades, really locking down that position a lot more than others, giving up a ton of points and stats to point guards. But I just don't think we expect the points to come from the point guard spot in Chris Paul tonight for the Suns. It's got to come from Book more than anything, who's really carrying them on offense above all else, especially without Ayton. And I don't think that's enough to get us to 230 tonight either. So I think we're feeling good about this total under here. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first NBA play a prop for tonight, Mr. Triple J.
Jaren Jackson Jr., yes. Is Ja Morant going to play tonight? Perhaps, but Dylan Brooks is suspended. And as we know, the Grizz are without Steven Adams and Brandon Clark the rest of the way, probably regular season at least for Adams. So Triple J is going to be operating more as a center against a Rockets team that gives up the 6th most rebounds to centers in their last 15. They give up the most blocks per centers on the season. They have a young team that will try to attack the rim, and that definitely means good things for the league's leader in shot blocking. You can get plus 125 for him to have 5 steals and blocks, which is what he's averaging at home in 2023 versus just 3.2 stocks on the road. So a slight uptick in rebounds and points, averaging 19.5 at home in the new year here. Without Dylan Brooks, his rebounds go up a little bit. Without Steven Adams, his points go up 4 per game to 19.5. His minutes go up 4 to 30 per game. With or without Ja, I mean, it's still pretty similar numbers. I mean, he's scoring 20 points per game his last 15 without Ja on a slightly higher usage rate. I don't know if we're going to see a balls to the wall Ja Morant here if it's his first game back. I mean, he had to miss a game for conditioning. I don't know where his mindset's going to be. He might be feeding Triple J against a really poor defense, a Rockets team that has a 125 defensive rating on the road and plays faster on the road in the new year again. And I mean, look, Triple J is showing his offensive arsenal lately. Yeah. He's granted with Ja out, he's got 28 points per game and 6.5 rebounds out of 31% usage rate his last 4. Definitely doing it inside and out. As he said, there's not much resistance down low with Sengun, probably the starter for Houston. So I would add the rebounds here. 25.5 points and rebounds gives you better odds than just 19 points for Triple J. Like I said, the stocks has a huge plus odds to it. I guess the concern here is a blowout and then him not getting the minutes necessarily. He did have 4 stocks in a massive blowout against Houston last year at home. I mean, there's definitely a potential he gets those defensive numbers even in 3 quarters.
Yeah, it's not a bad bet by any means. I mean, adding the steals in there is probably a good idea, but I think something that you might be able to lean into is he needs to score, and they know he needs to score, and he can't score if he's not on the floor, and he's not on the floor because he's fouling, and if he's fouling, it's because he's going for blocks. So my logic there is like the only thing that makes me stay away from the blocks and the steals is, hey, dude, we know that's your thing, but like right now you're our best scorer. I know that that's hard to believe, and Desmond Bane has been a little bit cold, so we like kind of need you to score, which means you have to stay on the floor because there's incredible splits for him when he gets like less than like 25 minutes because he's got 4-ish, 5-ish fouls. His numbers just go way down, unsurprisingly, and the Grizzlies numbers go way down with it. So just using that game theory, like I'm going to stick with the points and the rebounds for dude. Even if Morant plays, like he's got to be option 1B at this point. I think they know they have to rely on him rather than just the style of play that Ja has of drive and kick every time. So let's stay in this game real quick and go under Mr. Jalen Green. We got to fade the youngster here. 27.5 points and boards. If you go under that, it's minus 118 at FanDuel. They are on the road for this game, are the Rockets in Memphis, where we know what that Memphis defense is like, especially at home. 16 points per game in his last 7 road games for Jalen Green, 2 boards in that time frame and about 3.5 assists. That's all with a 30% usage. So he's shooting the ball a third of the time that his team is putting it up. Only 29.6 minutes in that time as well, like basically 30 minutes a game with that 30% usage, but really bad splits there. 31% from the field, 21% from deep, and just a 90 individual offensive rating in that time. That's good for minus 78 while he's on the floor for that squad in those last 7 roadies. Like I said, on the road in this season in general, 18.5 points a game and just 3 rebounds. Not nearly enough of what you need for that 28 for him tonight. He's only topped 20 points twice so far in January on the road. That's against Indy, Philly, and the Lakers. And yeah, that Indy defense, poof, and then the Philly defense against guards, also very bad. The Lakers, we know that's the only place on the floor you can score from. So I think there's some pretty good reasons to fade Jalen tonight. These numbers being a little bit bloated by things he's done against teams way worse on defense than you're going to get from that Grizz team tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that's only 20 points in all of 2023 on the road, not just January, but it was the Lakers in January back when they sucked on defense is why I put that note in there. But yeah, I mean, this is only his second road game at Memphis. As a rookie early in his career, he had a really rough 15-2-1 line in a 34-point loss. Minus 37 is hard, that's hard to do, but that is. He's had a couple of nice games at home. I mean, really one nice game at home against Memphis, but he's such a bad road player at this point in his career. Like the splits are so stark with his shooting, and the Grizzlies are so good on defense at home that I think this is just a great opportunity to jump on that. and add the rebounds, because Jalen actually has 0 rebounds in 2 of his last 5 road games, I believe. So he's not necessarily going to be banging down low there. So the Pacers are, not necessarily gunning for that play-in spot. They might sit Tyrese Halliburton again tonight. I think you'd rather Halliburton's playing if you're going to follow me on Pascal Siakam here, but you would like Scotty Barnes to be sitting, which he might actually sit. I don't think he's missed a single game this season, but last season he missed 6, and Siakam spiked with 27 points and 8.5 assists, played 42 minutes with Scotty out. I'm going to see a lot more ball handling. And he's another guy with just crazy home road splits, and it's gotten more and more stark lately, late in the season. You look at just since February 1st, he's averaging 26 at home versus 19 on the road, 125 offensive rating at home, 104 on the road. And Indy should not be a difficult team for him to score against. They give up the 5th most points to power forwards in the last month here. He's averaging 24.5 and 7 dimes in his last 2 against Indy, shooting 60% from the floor. That one of those was just a massive blowout at home, and he still played 31 minutes, still got 23 points, which is where his props at here. I think you can tack on 6 assists to make it 29.5 points assists for better odds, especially if Scotty Barnes is out, because I just think he'll be distributing and handling the ball a little more.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope he's doing that. We need these Raptors to keep winning, and we need him to play, as well as I would say he has, especially against, teams in this division and teams around them, not the division, but teams close to them, in the play-in right now for the Eastern Conference. Like the Raptors have been playing better against those teams, if you look at it. And like you said, the power forward numbers against the Pacers have been pretty high lately, as they are tanking, dude. They're not going for that play-in tournament. Like, they're giving up. They've been sitting Halliburton all over the place. They want to know what they have with guys like Nembhard and even Nesmith at times. So we'll see who gets the bulk of the minutes here. But I don't see the Pacers trying to win anymore. They already hit their over-win total that was projected for preseason in February. And I think they were like, that's good enough. We got an all-star and we got our win total. We look better. We finally won more than 30 games again, unlike last year where it was like the worst season in team history. So they're pretty much good on this season, and I think Pascal has still got something to prove to get his team into the playoffs. So I'm with you on that one. And I'm going to finish up with a guy I kind of talked about a little bit on Monday in that Bulls Philly game. We didn't pull the trigger on him because you were right that you thought Zach LaVine might have a little bit of regression after some pretty high numbers. Now we go back to the well of him bumping back up after a bad game, and I think that's a little bit more appropriate for him at home as well. If you want for him 28.5 points and assists, that's -120 on DraftKings. Go over that, and then the threes for him as well at 2.5. You get plus odds for him to make 3 on DraftKings as well, +110. Looking at what he's done at home, like I said, a little bit better since the All-Star break, 30 points a game at home, 4 boards, about 5 assists, and that's all in that 31.5% usage. He's making more than 3 threes in that time as well, with a blistering 47% from deep. And then against the 76ers, who, as we know, not very good against guards, specifically shooting guards as well. Last 6 versus Sixers, going back to last year, 28 points a game, 5 boards, and 4 assists. That's on a 32% usage, right around where he's been at home this season and since the break. His last 6 versus the Sixers, 4 threes a game at 43%. And, that's a little bit skewed. He had a game where he went 11 for 13 at Philly and got obviously that percentage way up, but still, he's putting them up, right? Like 9.5 3-point attempts a game versus Philly over the last 5, as he's able to pull from there, pretty relentlessly. And Philly's allowing the 7th most points per game, the 8th most 3-pointers made to shooting guards over their last 15. They're just worried about scoring on offense on the road right now, especially putting up that 130 offensive rating and like 128 points over 8 games. Like that's how they're winning right now. And I don't think they're as concerned with a guy like LaVine going and getting his.
Yeah, I'm surprised at the plus odds here for 3 threes. It seems very low. I would even look at alternate for him to hit 4 threes. I don't think I'd go any higher than that. I do think that 11 3-pointer game against Philly is an anomaly to a degree, and Philly has been good guarding the 3-point line. They would be a little bit better if Melton and Milton are playing more because Harden's out. But I still think LaVine, he's been really hot lately. He's been really good against contenders, shooting from deep. And that is still the Sixers' weakness, is the backcourt, especially if Harden's playing and especially if Harden's dealing with a little balky Achilles as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what Harden or not, like he and Maxey, they're still on that offensive guard mindset, and so I think there's going to be opportunity for Levine tonight. I mean, DDR too, like DeMar, it could be either of them, but I think Levine's a better case to get points and the assists, like you talk about in this one. So that is all the time we have for you in this one, though. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Check out the other couple of game videos we have on this big slate for you guys tonight. And until we see you next, happy betting.